Hello, everybody, and welcome to our webinar this month. My name is Scott.
And I am Lynn here at Warmly Yours. Thank you so much for joining us.
And Lynn, I can't hear you very well. I don't know if it's just my headset, but let me turn it up a little bit.
I just adjusted mine, so is that a little bit
Okay,
better?
much better. Thank you.
Perfect. Awesome. So today we're talking about all the questions we often get asked as the radiant heating experts. So we've requested people to send in questions ahead of time. If you have any questions during the presentation, feel free to ask away. That's what we're here for, and we'd love to interact with you and make sure that all your questions are answered.
Speaking of questions,
There we go. At the bottom of the screen, there is a little tab that says Ask a Question, so you can type yours in there, or you're able to ask them in that sidebar chat, and we'll see them either way and definitely get to them by the end of today's presentation. So jumping right in, we want to talk a little bit about our floor heating basics. One of our most popular products is our TempZone heating systems. So can you tell us a little bit about those, Scott, and what they are, what they look like, what they're used for?
yeah, TempZone means, in layman's terms, it's a heating product that gets embedded in cement of some sort, either thin set or self-leveling. So it's a product that can be used for many different applications, but it needs to be embedded in thin set or self-leveling underlayment. It's compatible with tile or stone, marble, hardwood. You can use it with LVT, and that's what we recommend that you do if you have LVT, that you use this product. And it can also be used for linoleum. It's available in shower, floor, and bench mats. It's available in we call easy mats, which are 3x5 or different sizes for spot heating. And all products that are labeled as TempZone, except for our custom mats, are wet location listed, which means these products, except for the custom mats, can be put directly in showers, in saunas, anywhere where a wet location listing is required. It's very, very thin. It's only about 1/8 of an inch thick, and it's typically embedded in about 3/8 of an inch of thin set or self-leveling cement. So we had one of the questions that came in ahead of time, like we always solicit questions to make sure that we answer them when we do these, is that it really doesn't add much height at all, because it's actually included inside that 3/8 of an inch self-leveling or thin set layer. So it's the wire embedded in that 3/8 inch layer, not sitting on top of. So it's very difficult for some people to understand that, but it's actually in this, so it really doesn't add a lot of height to your installation at all.
Yeah, that's a great point. And then we also have our TempZone cable and accessories. So you can tell us a little bit about, installing with that loose cable and what that looks like.
Yeah, the loose cable is TempZone, so it's wet location listed, which means you can put it in a shower. You can use the Prodeso membrane shown here, which is an uncoupling membrane. The good thing about Prodeso membrane is it is waterproof. So if you want to do a waterproof bathroom or a shower floor, that sort of thing, you can use that along with our waterproofing items that are available separately. You can use that to make it actually so your bathroom is waterproof. So if water escapes from your shower and goes into your floor, it doesn't go downstairs into the kitchen below, which we all know can be a bit of a mess, or a living room. So that's very, very good for making a waterproof setup. The fixing strips are for floors that don't require Prodeso. If you're doing a normal bathroom install and you don't want to do a waterproof install, you don't need to buy the Prodeso if you don't want to. If your floor is in really good shape, it's very sturdy, it doesn't have any flex to it, then the Prodeso really isn't needed. You can use the strips, and it's a lot less expensive. So the strips are about 5.5 millimeters high, something like that, which is a little bit less than 1/4 of an inch high. So they would also be included with the cable. You string it back and forth using these strips along the perimeter of the room. So you just put that cable back and forth in the room, and that would be then included in the 3/8 of an inch. So once again, it's included in that 3/8 of an inch layer. It's the layer isn't on top of it. So you are not going to see those wires, or you're not going to see those strips at all.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's awesome. And now, what if you're installing on under a type of floor that isn't, tile or hardwood? Say you're doing laminate or floating hardwood, you'd be using our Environ product. So can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, the Environ product is a heating cable that's put into a screen um, of fiberglass reinforced foil. So it's very, very sturdy. The thing about Environ, it's never put in self-leveling or thin set. So we talked about product that requires it. This product requires that it's not put in that. So it's a floating installation. So what this does is it floats between two layers, and those layers are also floating too, except for stretch-in carpet. Obviously, stretch-in carpet, it can be used in the US only with that product, but it can be used quite often with laminate or floating hardwood. Notice it doesn't say LVT because LVT bends a lot. It's a lot more flexible than laminate or hardwood. So you don't want to put this product under LVT. It's great in the US for under carpet, and it's great for laminate and floating hardwood. It comes in rolls or large mats, which are really easy to install. You just lay it out on the floor and cover it up. One thing you have to remember when you're doing Environ is that it's never between two hard surfaces. So you may have a floating surface, but you need to make sure that on your subfloor you put a underlayment like Cork or Sarasorb, which we're going to be talking about in a little bit, and then you put the heat, the Environ on top of that, and it floats. Okay, so you have the underlayment Cork or Sarasorb that's laid out on the floor, but it's not attached to the subfloor. It simply is put together, and you can use tape to hold those pieces together, because it's okay if all the pieces move back and forth, but you don't want to tape them to the floor. And it's the same when you're doing the layout of your Environ. You want to make sure that you tape them together just in 4 spots where they meet. You don't want to do an entire tape layer around each edge, because now you're adhering it to the subfloor, and you don't want to do that. Remember, this is all going to be floating. So the most important thing is to remember, Environ needs to be installed over an underlayment. Then you have the Environ, and then you have the floating floor. These are all floating. That way you don't worry about them doing this. They simply move freely upon each other.
Awesome. Yeah, that's really good information to keep in mind. And then talking about underlayment, so we offer the cork and our synthetic cork that we call Sarasorb. So what are these used for? What's the best application for each one?
Cork is great for floating installations. It's a little bit thicker. It's a 1/4 of an inch thick, 6 millimeters instead of 5, like the Sarasorb. The Sarasorb is great for an underlayment when you need it for tile, because the Sarasorb, what you do is you adhere the Sarasorb to your subfloor using thin set to attach it down, because remember, we want tile to be installed very solidly. It doesn't float. Nothing in a tile installation floats. So you're going to put, especially if you have a concrete subfloor, if you are installing heat over a slab, you never ever want to put the cable directly on the slab, because all the heat that the cable makes is going to be pulled down into the slab instead of going up to where your feet are. So what we do is we use these underlayments to isolate that heating wire from the slab. So what we're doing is we're taking this Sarasorb, we're attaching it to the slab, we're then putting our heating product, which is TempZone, over the top of it in this case if you're doing tile, then install the tile on top of that. That gives you a nice firm solid floor. Also, the Sarasorb you can pour self-leveling over it. So if you want to do that, you attach the Sarasorb to the subfloor, put the heating wire down on there, and you attach it very well, because it wants to float when you pour self-leveling over it. So you attach the wire to the top of the Sarasorb, and then you can cover it with self-leveling to give you a nice flat surface. That's what you'd do is if you'd want to install LVT over a concrete slab. Sarasorb on the slab attached, cable on top of the Sarasorb, 3/8 of an inch of self-leveling, and then you put your LVT on top of that. You don't want to do self-leveling over the top of cork, because when cork gets wet, it expands. So self-leveling is full of water. So the best thing is to make sure that you don't use cork if you're using self-leveling over it. Only use Sarasorb. But that's what they're for. They do They are good for crack suppression, so they will be a very good thing for that. If you have a crack in your subfloor, it's very good to cover that to give you a nice flat surface. So that's what the underlayments are. They can be used in multiple different ways, but ideally with tile, you're using this underlayment to keep the wire isolated from the slab. And if you're doing an installation of a floating installation, then either one of these will probably work okay. You just lay it on the subfloor, put the heat on top of it, let it float, and then put your laminate or carpet in the US over the top of it, and that all will float together.
Awesome. Yeah, that's great. And now say you wanted to do some actual heating of the concrete slab that you have or are planning on installing. You'd use our slab heating, and can you tell us a little bit more about that and why you would choose to go with slab heating?
Slab heating is usually chosen for new construction because that way you're actually putting you're getting your area set for concrete for the slab. So what you do is on that you would put rebar in the slab, and you would prop that rebar up about 2 inches, because if you're doing a 4-inch slab, you want this heating wire to be in the middle of the slab, not laying at the bottom. So what you do is you put rebar in, and then you prop the rebar up, and then when you prop that rebar up, you then attach the cable or the slab heating mats to that, and then pour your concrete right through it. If you look here, you can see that there's a mesh on this product. That mesh is big enough that allows the concrete to pour right through. So once you're pouring that slab, you don't have to worry about, oh, I need to pour and then put the cable on and then pour on top of it. You can do it that way if you like. That's a 2-step installation. But the easy way is to do the 1-step installation where you prop the rebar up in the middle of the pour, then pour right through it. The mats are really good for large rectangular areas because the cable's already pre-spaced on that. So you just roll it out, you attach it really well, and then the concrete pours right through. If you're doing areas that are round, if you're doing areas that are difficult to get a rectangular thing into that non-rectangular space, you would use a cable. So what you have to think about is when you're doing heat of a floor, there's 2 different ways of doing it. In the old days, you heated the slab and then used low R value products on top to let the heat come through, like whatever you want to choose, tile or whatever it is. You want that low R value to go up through the slab. We have found that, and one other thing with the product installed in a slab, it does heat slower. It takes longer for that product to heat up. So that's why most of our installations are done on top of the slab. So your slab's already there for existing work, and it's much faster, and it can get much warmer if you're only heating a half an inch as opposed to 4 inches of concrete. So that's one thing you want to look at. So if you're doing new construction and you want to do like polished concrete floor in your basement, this would be the product you use. So you would put that cable right in the middle of that concrete and then polish the top of it. So that's where your slab heating products are aimed at, new construction.
I've seen a lot of people do that with garages too, which is a really nice option.
Exactly.
So moving on to the SmartPlans that we offer. So anytime that you are looking at getting a quote with us, or if you want to kind of know, I want to heat this room, I have an idea what it's going to cost, but I don't know how to get the coverage I need, or I don't know, what kind of products to purchase, we're always going to recommend that you get a smart plan from us. So can you walk us through this really good example of one with a TempZone flex roll being quoted and kind of show us what we're looking at?
One of the hardest things to do for a person that's never done an installation before is to try to figure out how much product they need, because you just can't buy the biggest and cut it. It has to be designed correctly to fit in that space. You can never ever cut the heating wire in a floor heating job. So the idea is to not get a gigantic roll and then, I'm going to use this much and cut it in half, then I'll just use the other in the other room. It won't work. It's going to overheat. It's going to fail. So what we need to do is we need to make sure we get the right size for that particular room. And the way that starts is with a sketch of your space that you want heated with the dimensions on it. So this drawing for a first timer it takes the mystery out of what size do I need, how many watts is it going to be, how many amps is it going to be, I mean, how much is it going to cost to operate. All those questions are going to be answered by this plan, and this plan is free. We will do this installation plan for you at no charge, and you're not going to have to wait a week for the plan to get done, or a month like some other companies do. You're probably going to have the plan done the next day. So it takes the mystery out of getting the right product. It also shows you how to lay it out. That's another big mystery for people, is where do I put it? How do I lay it out in this room? Well, it's right there on the plan for you. It shows you where the start is with the triangle, and it shows you where the end is with the square. And you just cut the sections of the mesh. You never ever cut the wire, and then you do your flips and turns as it shows on this plan.
Right. That's
what you
awesome.
have to do when you do the sketch for us is you have to give us dimensions so we know how big that space is. And then you have to tell us where the thermostat is, because that's where the product will start. It'll start where the thermostat is. So if your thermostat's over here, you don't want the beginning to be all the way over here, because the cold lead won't reach. The cold leads are built into the product. You don't have to buy separate leads. We don't require you to try to put these things together. That's done at the factory. You don't want to have to take, okay, I've got this much heating wire. Now I've got to splice in this much non-heating wire, because you have to get the heating product has to have a line that goes from the heating product over to the wall, up the wall, and to the thermostat. That wire that does that part is a non-heating wire, and it's already attached to the product. We get calls all the time. Okay, so I see how much cable I need to heat it. Now, how much cold lead do I need to buy? Well, you don't need to buy any cold lead because it's already attached. We wouldn't expect you to attach that out in the field. So what's great about the Smart Plan is it tells you what product is used. It tells you what the wattage is of the product. It tells you what size breaker. It takes all the mystery out of it. You don't have to sit and try to figure out, okay, what kind of breaker do I need, and what do I tell the electrician? I mean, it's all right here on the sheet. It'll tell you what the operating cost is, what your total amperage is. All that information is included here on the plan. It takes all the mystery out for the first-time users. And people that are experienced still like to do this because it shows them exactly how to lay the plan out. They just do it as it shows, and it's ready to go. So that's what's so great about the Smart Plan, is it really takes the mystery out of this. And the thing is, if you want to buy the product from an e-tailer, you're more than welcome to do that. But why don't you get the plan first from us, because we're not going to charge you for it. And if you already have bought it and you say, you know, I've got this product, how will it fit in my room? How do I lay it out? We'll do that design for you, and you'll have it probably the next day. So instead of trying to figure it out on your own, this does all that work for you.
Awesome. Yeah, it really just makes it so easy when you're doing that installation to have it right there in front of you.
Yeah, and the one thing you want to do is when you get this drawing back from us is to make sure that the dimensions of on the drawing still match the dimensions of your room.
Right.
If you've ever done any construction, you know that you find this tub that you like, and then a month later, you know your install date's not going to be for another 6 months, but you get your plan right away. Oh, we found this great tub, and it's a bigger tub. It's so cool. We have to get this tub. Well, when you go from a tub that's this size to a tub that's that size, it reduces the amount of square footage of the floor. So if anything expands in the room, you're going to need to redesign it, because you're going to need a smaller heating product. If you take something out, let's say that our tub has been removed and we're just going to do a shower, well, then your area for heat has increased. So you'll need the next size up, or 2 sizes up, to fill that space. So always, always, always check your dimensions compared to what the drawing is, especially if you got the drawing 6 months ago and you've changed anything.
Absolutely. So moving on to a Smart Plan with cable and Predesso. Obviously it looks quite a bit different. So can you give us, some information about what you're looking at when you're, getting a Smart Plan that is similar to this?
Yeah, the thing is, excuse me, we're going to send you the correct amount of Predesso too, because we're going to take your square footage of the room that you made the sketch of, and we're going to get you that same size of Predesso that you're going to need. The Predesso is going to go, especially if you're redoing this room or it's a brand new room, you're actually going to be putting the Predesso in all of these spaces, not just the heated area, because that way you're starting at the same height. even though it doesn't add hardly anything. You just want it to all be that way. And then what you're going to do is, you can see this blue area is an area where Predesso is. The sink and everything and the cabinets are sitting on top of that part. Notice how there's no heat going under that cabinet, because you cannot heat under a cabinet. It's against the code. And it also, if you put something that's enclosed or permanent over the top of the cable, it can trap the heat and can cause cable failures down the road. So there's a couple good reasons for not heating under permanent objects. If you look here, you can see that here's our triangle. We're always looking for that triangle, and we're always looking for that square, because that tells us the beginning and that tells us the end. Here's the thermostat right between. The good thing is our cold leads are 15 feet long, so that's more than enough footage to get here and to here and up the wall. And then it shows the area as you lay it out. And it goes back and forth, and you press it down into the Predesso, and you keep moving your way around. If you take a look at this red dot, this is what's so cool about our plans that nobody else does, is that we show you where the halfway mark of the cable is supposed to be when you're in the middle of your installation. That way, if you are in the middle of your installation and your red dot, or it's actually a white dot on the cable, if your white dot is all the way over here, right by the beginning, it tells you that you've gotten the cables too close together. You're using it too fast. If your halfway mark shows up over here, it tells you that you have used too little and you've had the space too wide. You've got less watts per square foot. So what it does is it keeps you from getting all the way to the end of your installation before you find out, oops, I've got 10 feet too much cable. If you go at halfway point and your halfway point is right where it should be, it's going to match up perfectly with the drawing. So that's another thing, that you don't get all the way to the install and find out you're using too much or too little. You find out halfway. It makes it much, much easier to install. So use that dot, dot on the plan and match it up with the white space on the heating cable that you get. What's really cool about our heating cable, not a lot of people know, is that the footages are marked on the cable, so you know exactly how many feet are left. It's marked every foot, so it tells you 19 feet, 18 feet, 17 feet. It tells you how much footage is left, so that helps you when you're doing your layout. So look for those two things on the wire, the footage markings and the white dot at the halfway point.
Awesome. And then if you're installing with sleepers, if you're using hardwood, nailed hardwood or something like that, and you know that you're going to be putting sleepers down, obviously that's going to kind of throw a wrench in a lot of the other kinds of smart plans that we saw. So can you explain what you're looking at here and how you're going to install in and around those sleepers?
Here's as close to rocket science as we get. So what is required is pretty simple if you break it down. When you buy your flooring that you're going to use, hardwood, the manufacturer will tell you what's the nail rate. And the nail rate is how many nails or how far away can the nails be? Is it 8-inch? Is it 10-inch, 12-inch, 14-inch, whatever that is? Because whatever that number is going to affect the placement of these blue dotted lines, and those are our sleepers. So if your manufacturer says you need it's an 8-inch nail rate, you want to make sure the sleepers are at 8 inches, not at 10 or 12 or 14 or whatever. It has to be nailed to comply with the warranty at that spacing. Well, what you do is you tell us that, and once we know what the nail rate is and what the dimensions of your room are, we will then lay the plan out according to that nail rate. And that tells us how far apart these sleepers are going to be spaced. It'll tell you right here, sleepers spaced at 12 inches, so you'll know that that's a 12-inch nail rate. And the thing is, you want to make sure that you get the strips on the side, because this is going to be cable routed back and forth using the strips to space it correctly as it goes inside. We call these the lanes. The lanes are where the cables are going to be laid, and there's where the sleepers are. So once we know that, we then can also check and see what distance do we need to maintain for those strips from the wall. Because if you get the strips too close to the wall, all of a sudden you're going to run out of cable at the end. If you get those strips instead of 7.5 inches here, like it shows here, and 7.5 inches over here, if you make those 12 inches or 15 inches, all of a sudden the borders are in like this, and what's going to happen? You're going to have a bunch of leftover cable that you're not going to have any room for. So you look out for these, and you look out for your nail rate. Now the idea is these sleepers are about 1.5 inches wide, and you lay them across the floor, because if they are going this way, that means the flooring is going this way, perpendicular. Right? Is that perpendicular? No, I think I've spoken myself. It's not going the same direction. All of a sudden, I have a brain lapse here. But if your floor direction, if the direction of the wood is going this way, the sleepers are going to be going this way. That's how they nail down. So with this plan, the flooring is going to be installed this way, and that's what gives you your nail rate. So that's what you want to watch out for. So that's how it's going to be installed. So let us know which way you want the wood, which direction, because if you need to match it up with another room, you want to make sure that the wood's going the same direction as the other room, not opposite. So that's one thing to look out for. Also, your sleepers, you want to make sure they're about 3/8 of an inch high, because what you're going to do is you're going to, in the areas between the sleepers, you've got the cable running, and in that area, since these are 3/8 of an inch high, your self-leveling is going to be dumped or installed at the same height. So when you're all done with your installation, you're going to have a entirely flat floor, sleepers and self-leveling. The one thing you want to make sure is you don't want the self-leveling down here and the sleeper up here, because then you have air pockets, and air pockets trap heat. So you want to make sure you have self-leveling, the exact height of your sleeper, and that's why you buy 3/8 inch sleepers, because that way you're getting the correct height for the cable and the self-leveling. So that's as close to rocket science as we get. But really, we're just going to ask you a few questions. You're going to tell us the answers, and then we will know how to lay it out and how to do the drawing. And this one's much more difficult to figure out how to space if you're a first timer. Always, 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 if you're doing a smart plan for sleepers and hardwood, make sure you send it by us first before you get into it too deep.
Yeah, it could definitely get a little complicated.
Right. So that's it. Rocket Science 101. We're done with that lesson.
Awesome. So let's say someone wanted to heat a shower in a bathroom, both the bathroom area and the shower. What's the best way to go about that? And can you show us or talk about the smart plan that shows, both of those heated areas?
Well, what's cool, we're going to be talking about shower materials here in the next slide, just conveniently, getting everybody built up here for the big show off here. But what you have here, if you look at this plan, you can see that there are two different colors of the wire, which indicates two different products are being used. Here's this size, which is a 120-foot cable, and this size, which is a 40-foot cable. We always suggest that you put two different cables in case something happens. If you don't use our waterproofing products in your shower, sometimes you can run into leakage problems, and then you might have to remove your drain. You might have to work on the plumbing. And if that plumber gets in there and he damages the wire by putting new screws in for the grate, then there's a chance that they might do something to that wire. Well, if you use two separate wires, if this wire does get damaged somewhere down the road, or you want to redo your shower, you still have a functioning bathroom in the rest of it. So if something happens in the shower, that's still going to isolate it in the shower. The rest of your floor is going to be usable. And also, sometimes you can use a thermostat here, and you can also do a secondary thermostat over here to allow you to heat the shower at a different temperature than the rest of the room. And that especially if you're taking your shower in the morning, a shower application, if you're doing the old-fashioned mud way, could be 2 or 3 inches thick, but the rest of the bathroom is only 1/4 of an inch thick. Which would you think takes longer to heat?
Is this a me question?
Rhetorical question. I got that one right. It's going to take more mass longer to heat than it will for less mass. So you have less mass in the bathroom, you have more mass in the shower if you don't use our kits. So you could have two different heat rates in that space. So if you want to do that, then you put a thermostat for your shower, you make it a little bit hotter, you have it come on a little bit earlier, and then the rest of the floor, operates on its own thermostat. So it gives you more flexibility, more freedom down the road to put two separate cables into the shower or into the rest of the room. And the good thing about the shower is if it's a standard size and use our kits, we actually have mats that are designed to work right in that kit. So you don't have to figure any of that out. It simply lays in there and you're ready to go. So should we talk about showers?
Absolutely. I would love to talk about our shower kits. So we offer waterproofing shower kits here at Warmly Yours. We've actually partnered with PSC to really offer this kind of one and done shower installation model. So can you tell us kind of, how is this installed and what are the pretty awesome benefits of using one of these waterproofing shower kits?
Well, I can't go into full details because it does take a lot of explaining, because it's a brand new concept for a lot of folks who are used to using a mud job or a dry pack, and then getting a mop and using a hot mop to waterproof, and all these other old-fashioned ways of waterproofing the system, which sometimes don't even waterproof it very well. And the thing is, with the old type systems, you have to install it one day, you have to do a water test the next day, you have to come back the next day to see how the water test did, then you have to it's a multiple day installation with the old type of install. With these kits, you can actually do it all in one day, which means you get it all set up, you put it installed, and you do your water test, and you come back the next day and you're ready, you're done. So what it is it's a reinforced base, and the base is installed. We have it in normal size, very common sizes, and you then you would use thinset to put it down, so you don't have to worry about getting your pan shaped just the right way. Oh, I got a little bit of a high spot here, a little bit of a low spot over there. You simply lay it in, and it drains, surprisingly, right to where the drain is. And that's the whole idea of this kit, is it takes all this workmanship that used to take days and it condenses it into something that any DIYer can do in one day. So you lay this product down on the floor, you hook it up, you get the plumbing here, you take your drain and you hook it up to the plumbing, and then you waterproof the base, and then you waterproof the walls. So remember what a shower is. It's simply taking the water from the shower head and getting it into the drain. That's what a shower system is. And you're doing that trying to have as little leakage as possible. The good thing about this is it's all waterproof. So you put this around the valve, you put this around where the pipe comes out for the shower head. You have the corners that are already prefabricated, so when you do your corners, you just put them in place there with thinset. And the great thing about this product is it doesn't require any special glues that you have to go out and find. It's nothing proprietary. You simply use a modified thinset to set all these pieces together. And then you do your walls with the waterproofing membrane. You don't have to have that special green board. You don't have to caulk it. You don't have to bring waterproofing up 6 inches from the end, and then it takes all that out of it. So it's much, much easier. Then if you look, this particular product right here is the heating mat for that. So once you install it, you put that on top. You can do another waterproof membrane on top of it if you want to. It's not required. And then you're ready for tile. You've got your curbs. You've got your thermostat here, your drains. All you really need to tell us is if you need ABS or PVC, and what kind of drain cover you want. We got all kinds of drain colors, different colors, solid stainless steel if you want it. There's a myriad of drains that you can choose, and the good thing is it's all waterproof.
And we do have a past webinar on our waterproofing shower kits online on our website if you want to watch that, and you can see me and Scott talk endlessly about these.
Yeah, and there's also a video that shows you exactly how it's done too. So if you have any questions about that and you think about how can I change this from a 5-day install to a 1-day install, this is the product for that.
Absolutely. So moving on, talking about our SmartPlans again. So for Environ, you can obviously see this is a very similar looking SmartPlan as with our TempZone rolls. Can you show us, a little bit more about, what makes this SmartPlan with Environ different than the ones we saw previously?
Well, this is a U.S. customer, so it's done with carpet. And if you notice that we don't get up against the walls, we leave ourselves a 1-foot barrier or open area around the product. That allows you to have a carpet stretcher come in. You lay your carpet pad down. Carpet pad has usually very good R value. So even if you have a concrete slab, the best thing to use on top of that is simply carpet pad with a good R value, something over 2. And there's a lot of them out there that do have good R values. Then you simply lay this product out, making sure that you have your 1 foot perimeter all the way around. And then what happens is the carpet person will come in with a tack strip, and they'll put it all the way around the perimeter of the room. They'll attach it, and then that 1 foot perimeter on the other side of the room, whichever side that is, lets them get that stretcher in and grab it with a really sharp teeth and stretch it and put it over the tack strips. So that's why we do the 1 foot perimeter all the way around the room. And also we know that no one's standing in that area anyway. So the idea is to get the heat where your feet are. So that's how an Environ plan looks different than the other plans, but you still have the triangle, you still have the square, you still have the triangle, and you still have the square. So let's take a look at the description here. We always tell you what size product's going in where, and we also tell you how many amps it is. So if you look here, roll number 1 has 3 amps, and roll number 2 has 6 amps. Those both can be installed on the same thermostat because they total less than 15 amps. People ask, how many mats can I, or how many heaters or whatever, how many will fit on one thermostat? You can put as many as you want to on one thermostat as long as it's less than 15 amps. If you have a bigger room, over 120 square feet, then you'd use a thermostat and a power module, and they would work together. The thermostat would make the power module turn on at the same time, and that's how you heat very large areas, using 1, 2, 3, or more power modules.
Absolutely. So looking at our thermostats, we have a lot of different thermostat options available from, non-programmable, just a basic on and off, all the way up to our Wi-Fi enabled ones. So can you give us a super quick overview of what these thermostats look like and what each feature, what each one has feature-wise?
I love green check marks. That's it. Well, not really. I think once you see this, it's excuse me, it's pretty self-explanatory. But most of the people buy this unit here, the Inspire Touch. It's incredibly easy to use, and it looks cool on your wall. It has the display. It has a screensaver on it, so it's not always really bright and garish. After you've done major controls and your switches and changes, after about a minute or so, it'll turn to a darker color, just showing you the temperature. This is what most people use. If you want to be able to control it with your phone, with the Wi-Fi, you can get this one. This one we don't sell as many of, and primarily we keep it around for people that have the old thermostats that were actually just we call comfort regulators, which have a dial from 0 to 10. If you have a dial from 0 to 10, this is the unit, and that's why we keep it. This is what you would get to replace it, because it allows you to use 0 to 100%. So 100% being on all the time, 0 is like a volume control. This one doesn't have very many green checks to it, and you go, well, why in the world do you even sell it? Well, what this one is this is for people who don't want to program. They just want to set it and forget it, which means if they want their floor to be 84 all the time, they use this. Also, even though it's the least expensive thermostat, it's usually used with the most expensive floors. Go figure. And why is that? Because some floors require that the temperature doesn't go up and down every day. Like these products here with tile, you can have it be 86 when people are walking on it, and then have it be at 70 overnight when no one's walking on it. Well, you don't have to worry about tile expanding and contracting because it's a monolithic slab. It kind of acts all together. Well, with wood or with laminate, some engineered hardwood, they don't want the temperature to go from 70 to 85 every day. They just want it to go to what the temperature limit is. Some solid hardwoods are 82 degrees, they have to stay there, or some of them are 85. This allows you to set it and forget it. The one thing you do have to remember, though, is at the beginning of the heating season, you just don't go from 65 degrees to 85. You go up 2 degrees every day until you get to the temperature you want. Then at the end of the season, you go from 85 or whatever that number is down 2 degrees every day until it's off. So this is really good for some carpet, some hardwood. Some other products will say must be maintained at this temperature. This will keep it right at that temperature forever until you change it.
It's awesome.
Now, what's really cool is the next slide. Go ahead and take it.
Oh, this is my favorite. I am so excited about these. We now offer Swarovski crystal options for our Inspire Touch and Touch Wi-Fi thermostats. So for either one, you do have the option of getting either our Infinity series, where it kind of has that like smattering of crystals on it, or our Crystal Moonlight, Golden Shadow, Comet, all of our different colors, so that you can really match your decor and have this kind of, it's just such a cool talking point. I think they're awesome. I'm very excited about these.
Yeah, and for you people that have black and white monitors with your computer, like in the old days, I know you can't appreciate the colors here. I just bought a very large screen, black and white, big screen. But no, I'm just being facetious. You would never do that. Everybody's got color now. But anyway, these are, instead of thinking, the reason I bring it up that way is because in the old days, it was white or bust. You had white and that was it. And in a black and white picture, they looked white, and that was it. But the good thing about these are you got a bunch of different colors that you can choose from,
Yeah.
and you can also get the black one. If you don't like the crystals, you can get the black thermostat too without the crystals.
Right.
So that's why I brought up the black and white thing, not to sound stupid, but just to simply let you know that it's not the old days. That there are a bunch of different things you can choose from.
There are. And moving on to some of our great website tools. So if you do have questions, or if you aren't quite ready to reach out to us directly yet and just kind of want to get a feel for, what kind of system you would need when you're doing an installation in your home, then absolutely feel free to jump on our website and use our Instant Quote tool builder. It's just going to ask you some very basic, simple questions on your on your project. I almost said products. Product. I cannot talk today. On your project, and it's going to show you, from there what products we would recommend for that area. So then you can click through, learn more about all your different options, and actually choose the best system for your space. So I think it's a really cool tool to be able to use. And actually on Tuesdays generally, I do daily trainings where I actually kind of go over this in a little bit more detail. So if you feel like joining me for that, absolutely, please do.
And the thing is, you can play around with different spacings of the cable too. A cable a room with cable spaced at 3 inches will be more expensive than a room that is cable spaced at 4 inches, because you're reducing the amount of product you're buying. So this lets you choose this. It'll let you choose the thermostat, so you can get like a total at the very end and go, okay, well, I want to change this, and it lets you change it on the fly. That's what's so great about this particular part of our website.
Absolutely. And then we do have a design tool where you can actually design your room. You can really drag and drop, all the different furniture that you have. You can have, just all the information that really makes your space unique. And from there, you can request a plan from us so that we're able to actually see what your space looks like without you having to hand draw it or, dig up an architect's layout. You're able to actually customize it on our website, send it in to us, and we can get you one of those smart plans we showed earlier, usually within about a business day.
It's really cool too, because you can drop in toilets. If you want to have a bathroom that's got 6 toilets, you're more than welcome to do that. And it allows you to do that. You can drop them in anywhere in the room here, or bidets or sinks or showers. You just choose them over here and you drag them over here and size them to the size they are. And then all of a sudden you've got an installation plan. It's really, really cool.
Another awesome tool we have on our website is our heat loss calculator. So can you, as a tech guy, Scott, can you tell us a little bit more about this and what we're looking at?
Yeah, excuse me. I always get choked up when I talk about this. And that is because if you have a 10 by 10 room here and a 10 by 10 room over here, that doesn't mean that they're going to have the same BTU needs. If you have a 10 by 10 room here that's on the second floor above your heated kitchen, the floor is automatically going to start warmer than an addition that's on a slab. So we know that there's going to be a big heat difference there. Also, this room, if it's got 4 walls that are all interior walls with no windows, and the ceiling is 8 foot high, you are going to know how many BTUs are needed to heat that space. You take that same 10 by 10 room, you put it as an addition to your house, and 3 of the walls are exterior walls. And in those exterior walls, there are big windows in each single one, and the ceiling is 20 feet high, and you've got 6 skylights in it. That room is going to take a whale of a change in design than the other room, simply because you have all these heat loss items. Heat loss items are items that will allow heat to escape from the space. And that's all we're figuring out. We're figuring out the amount of heat loss in that particular space. So this room over here that's 10 by 10, below it is a heated kitchen. Above it is another floor that's heated. It's going to take a lot fewer BTUs to heat that space. But you take that same product and you put it in this 10 by 10 room, and all of a sudden the floor can actually feel colder. So if you're using the same amount of power here and the same amount of power here, this floor will feel warmer than this floor will, because the heat escaping through the skylights. Skylights are cool looking, but if you ever drive around in the Midwest after a snowstorm and you look at people's roofs as you drive by, and I'm kind of a nerd, so I do that, but if you look there, you'll see that there are 3 skylights in this person's bathroom, and you can see that the area all around them on their roof are all melted. Well, the reason why that area is all melted on their roof outside is because all the heat's going out from the skylight. So those are heat loss items. Windows. If you put a door on an outside wall for a bathroom, that's a big heat loss item there. So keep in mind that different rooms, even though they're the same size, can have totally different heat loss requirements. So that's hopefully a common sense way of going, okay, I've got a bunch of skylights, I've got a bunch of windows. Might not be a good match for sole source of heating, whereas a 10 foot by 10 foot room on the second floor will be. So just think of that, and this is what you're telling it. You're telling it how many walls that are exterior, if there are any windows in them, what your R value is of the insulation below, what the insulation is above, what's the R value of the insulation in your walls, and it will tell you what your heat loss is.
That's great. And then another tool that we have on our website that a lot of people really like to utilize is our operating cost calculator. We have this for different types of products that we have available, and it's going to actually, you can play around with it. You can put in, the heating system you're going to be using, the type of room or the room size of the space that you're looking at heating, and your energy rates. You can actually put in your location, and it's going to pull up what your energy cost would be. And then from there, you can actually see, what you would be paying per day to run that system, depending on how long you use it. You can update the daily usage. Maybe you have it on for 24 hours a day, or maybe you're only planning on using it maybe 3 hours a day if it's in, a movie room or something like that. And you can actually play around with it and see, if I planned on using this room for 8 hours, maybe I'd want to use, a little bit more or less product to fit within that cost that I want to stay in. So it's a really great way to actually kind of see what this is going to add to your electric bill.
Yeah, take a look at this daily usage down here, and you can see this is a little slider that you can move it left or right, and as you move it left or right, the values will change and tell you what your operating costs will be, because we know what the size is, right? The only thing that changes is the amount of time that it's on.
Right. And actually today I'm going over that in pretty good detail at our 4 o'clock crowdcast, so feel free to join me if you want to.
Awesome.
And talking about our snow melting systems, these are obviously very sought after in the winter, right? Like right about now. So can you tell us a little bit about these? It looks a lot like those TempZone products. So can you explain, exactly, how this works for snow melting?
It's like floor heating on steroids, because you're going from 3.7 watts per linear foot of cable to 12 watts per linear foot of cable. So it's much higher BTU output. So it's for outdoor heating for melting snow. It's perfect for walkways, driveways, patios, stairs, anything where you need to melt snow. And it's compatible with asphalt, concrete, and mortar under pavers. You can do pavers without mortar. They just don't heat quite as well. But the thing is, these can be used anywhere outdoors where you don't want snow to be. And when you're talking about snow melting, you're not talking about just melting it, creating water, and then 2 minutes later it freezes to become ice. What you're doing is you're actually melting the snow. You're actually then turning that snow to water, and then turning that water to vapor. And what's left behind is a nice dry surface that is not going to be embedded with snow. It's not going to have any black ice. It's simply going to be a dry surface. And these controls, you can either do it manually if you want to. You turn a dial and you say, I want to turn it on until it melts, and I'll turn it off. You can do that. If you're home all the time, why not do it that way? It's much less expensive. If you want to make sure that the driveway is clear when you come home from work after a snow event, then you'd want one of our products that's automatic. So the wire is spaced 3 inches on this mesh, and that way it is, you just roll it out, do like a TempZone roll install. You cut the mesh, turn it, and then you attach the mesh to the rebar or whatever you have to hold it in place. Now, if you're going to be doing stairs, if you're going to be doing circular areas with curves, then you are going to do this. And we're going to show you in a little bit a plan that shows stairs and a walkway, so you can see kind of how they're set up in your SmartPlan.
So you touched on the controls. Can you tell us a little bit more about, especially the two shown here, kind of, what are the features, what are they used for?
This is the product. When you're choosing a snow melt control, the first thing we're going to ask you is, what are you heating? Are you heating asphalt, or are you heating concrete, or are you heating pavers? Because asphalt is delivered hot and it cools off. So the last thing you want to do is you don't want to get that asphalt really, really hot again, because it can cause it to degrade or to melt or whatever in case something happens. So what you want is you want a controller that has a sensor built into the slab, so you can control the amount of temperature that slab gets. So you know that when a slab gets to 60 degrees, it's melting snow. It doesn't need to be turned up to 80 or 90. So you just keep it at 70 or whatever you want it to be. And what happens is, this product at the top is the controller itself. It uses a sensor that measures the temperature outdoors, and it is waiting for snow to hit it. When that snow hits that sensor and it's below 38 degrees, it will then tell the controller to turn on, all automatically, and then the controller will turn on the circuit breaker, or well, not the circuit breakers, but the relay panels, and then the area will heat. Okay, and the thing is, it's automatic. It comes on automatically, and it's got a control that will allow it to heat even after the snow is done. So if you think of a snow melting system, it's actually two phases of the snow melting system. It's actually the time when it's getting snowed on, and then it's the time later, we call the after run, where the product is heating even though there's not a snow event going on. Because if you don't have this this after run time, let's say your snow event is 6 hours, when that 6 hours is done, your system will then turn off if you don't have an after run. The after run is what keeps it melting, what keeps it running to melt the snow and to turn it into vapor. Okay, so that is where that automatic control comes from. Now, if you're doing a small area that's under 16 amps, you can use this controller because it's all in one. It's got a sensor at the top that can tell if it's getting snowed on. It's got a sensor on the bottom which tells it the temperature, and it's got the switch built in that you can run your electricity from your breaker panel to this, and then it will turn on and run your heating without the need of a relay panel or anything else. The problem is, or the issue is, they're not a problem, but the design spec is that it can do up to 16 amps, and that's it, which is perfect for sidewalks or stairs in front of your house.
Absolutely.
We have a whole wide range in between that too. We have Wi-Fi control where you can turn it on or off with your phone, which is really, really cool. But it's kind of like a manual switch, but it's a manual switch on your phone. You can turn it on or turn it off manually. So there's a whole wide range of controls. We have plenty of previous webinars on this subject itself. All you have to do is look up snow melting, and we'll talk for an hour about snow melting.
Oh yeah, we can talk all day about snow melting.
Sure.
So looking at this SmartPlan, like you said, it shows the mats and the cables with that stair and walkway area. Can you, again, walk us through what we're looking at here?
You have rectangular areas and you have stairs. Stairs you may think of being rectangular, but a lot of times you go to a fancy building and the stairs actually are in a an ellipse of some sort, or a curve. Those areas automatically lend themselves to cable, because cable you can You can install it on curves. You can follow the contour of the curve and tie it down. And that allows you to heat that area, which you wouldn't be able to do with a rectangular mat. So whenever you have stairs, we're going to do it with cable. And then if you have large areas that are rectangular, we're going to do it with the mesh, because the mesh is much faster to lay out. So when you're doing your dimensions for us, tell us what the dimensions of this area, tell us what those dimensions are. And then when it comes to here, this is where we get into the rocket science, the mystery of our crystal ball. And what we do is we start figuring out how much cable you need by knowing how deep the stairs are, which is the tread. We also want to know what the riser is, which is the distance from the top of this to the top of the next stair. And we also want to know the width, because then that will allow us to calculate the amount of cable that goes in between there. What happens to people that go, I want to heat from edge to edge? You know what those people do? Sometimes they put handrails in. And when they put handrails in, they drill holes into the concrete. Well, when you're drilling into the concrete, you also are going to be drilling into the cable that's inside the concrete. So that's why we always allow a space here on each side. That allows you to put handrails there if you want to without hitting the cable. Now, if you know that you're going to be putting handrails in, the best thing to do is to pre-sleeve them, which means put a circular tube in there, and that's where your handrail is going to go in. And you pre-sleeve those spots, and then you can heat around them if you know where those sleeves are. And you're going to put those sleeves in when you're putting the stairs in. So if you're doing that, then we can try to get edge to edge if we have to. But if you don't pre-sleeve them, you need to make sure that you have an area around on the sides that are buffer. And you also want to make sure when you're doing stairs not to do stairs that have a big overhang, like a bull nose overhang. You want to minimize that as much as possible. Ideally, you'd want to have zero overhang, because that way it keeps the cable closer to the edge. If just doing an exaggerated example here is if you do a stair and you a 6-inch overhang. I know you never would, because you'd catch it with your foot each time. But the further that overhang is away from the cable, that area has a really good chance of not melting, because the heat is simply too far away. The heat only travels about 1.5 inches laterally in any of these products, so you want to keep that in mind. Make sure that you minimize your overhang to make sure that the area at the front of the stairs melts.
Absolutely. So moving on to roof and gutter de-icing, can you tell us quickly about these and the differences between the self-regulating and cut-to-length cables?
Self-regulating cable is a fairly recent design in the world of cables, because it self-regulates. It starts at 5 watts per linear foot, and when it gets covered with ice or when it's really, really cold, instead of staying at 5 watts per linear foot, it can go up to 7, 8, or 9, or 10. So if you have one cable that's this long and half of it's covered with ice and the other half isn't, this side could be drawing 10 watts per linear foot, where this side would be pulling only 5. And that's what's great about self-regulating cable. The other great thing about self-regulating cable is you can buy a 1,000-foot spool if you want and cut it to length, as long as you size it correctly per your breaker. If you have a 15-amp breaker, you can only go to a certain length. Then you have to terminate it. So you may need multiple circuits for large installations. Otherwise, if you're heating 20 square feet or 20 linear feet, you could buy a 50-foot kit and just cut off 30 and use that 30 somewhere else if you wanted to. So that's what's so great about self-regulating cable. You can cut it and terminate it to whatever length you want, as long as you stay under the maximum circuit length. Constant wattage, which are the least expensive. The constant wattage, the problem with it is you can't cut it or trim it. You can't cut it to length. So if you have a 100-foot gutter, you cannot buy 120 linear feet of cable and cut off the last 20. You can't do that with constant wattage. It's much, much less expensive, and it can't overlap. So let's say that you wanted to do an installation with a downspout. You can send the cable down the downspout and back up, and if it's self-regulating, if it touches, it's not a big deal, because it won't heat in that particular area. It won't overheat. But if you do that with constant wattage cable, when it goes down and comes back up and it overlaps, that area gets really, really hot. So that's why you have to be careful with constant wattage cables. So That's the difference. That's the difference between when you go out to a store and you see this really cheap kit that goes in your gutter. That's going to be constant wattage. The other stuff, you can cut the length that you don't have to worry about it overheating if it overlaps. It's self-regulating. And there are different ways to control it too. You have a plug on this, which is you simply plug it in to an outlet and string the cable to where it needs to go and it heats. This other product is you can use it with controllers. So when it's wet and when it's snowing and when it's below a certain temperature, it'll come on. And when those two requirements, wet and a temperature, aren't met, it turns off automatically. So it's not on all the time. This other stuff, when you plug it in, is on all the time. So that's another thing that you're going to see about roof and gutter de-icing. And that's what a lot of people don't understand. Why is this one so cheap and why does this one cost more? And that's the reason.
It's a big difference.
Right.
And last but not least, our pipe freeze protection. So we do have these cables. They are called the Protect cables, and these are really great for keeping your pipes from freezing and bursting. So can you tell us a little bit about this and the fact that, what kind of pipes can you use it on and what applications are good?
Well, this is a self-regulating cable again, and in some easy cases, you can use the same cable as you do in your gutters. But it depends on the size of your pipe. Smaller pipes require less wattage. Larger pipes require more wattage. Also, the other thing that it takes, we need to know, is how thick is your insulation going to be? 1 inch thick, or is it going to be 3 inches thick? So that will tell you how many watts are needed to keep that pipe from freezing. So when you're doing either gutters or doing the pipe, it's a very similar quoting process. You need to tell us the lengths of these particular pipes, and that way we size it to that correct size. Now, the heat can be controlled the same way. You have the simple switch that comes on when it gets below a certain temperature. Then you also have other controls that will keep the temperature at a set point. And they have a little sensor that you install between the insulation and the pipe, and it will keep that temperature constant. Otherwise, you use this controller here, and that turns it on all the time. So if you're interested in getting gutter roof heat, if you're interested in getting pipe tracing, we will need to know the lengths of the gutters, or we'll need to know the lengths of the pipes. Also, with pipe heating, we need to know the diameter of the pipe, and we need to know what insulation is going around them. Also, for any places that you have valves, because you have to allow extra cable to get around that valve. So those are the kind of things that we're going to be asking for, and we'll probably just send you a sheet that's an RFQ, request for quote, and then you'll just write these things in, and that way we can give you a quote for it.
Right. It's a very simple quote to get out to you.
Correct.
So going on to installation tools. So you want to make sure that you have a digital ohm meter to perform all the tests that you need to on the mats or on the whatever product you purchase from us. Make sure that you have a digital ohm meter ready to go. You're going to want to make sure that you are performing these tests before, during, and after installation. A lot of people will just start doing an installation, not take any kinds of readings, and find out too late this product is somehow, defective or has gotten, damaged in some way. So when you receive the product, we always recommend, open the box, just take out the mats and just do a really quick test. We do test them in our warehouse, but on the off chance something has gone awry, you want to make sure you know about this before installation day. During that installation, we do also include circuit checks in your order. These are little just loudmouth devices that are actually going to be attached to the end of that mat during the installation process. And if any kinds of damage happen to the wire, if it gets nicked in some way, cut, damaged, a hammer or something gets dropped on it, it's going to send off a loud alarm, let everyone working on the job know, stop what you are doing, don't move, make sure that we fix this, splice this, do whatever we need to do before moving on with this project.
Exactly. I couldn't add any more, but I will. The thing is, these meters, you don't want to buy a $300 self-ranging meter. I just got off the phone with somebody right before this who had bought like a $400 meter self-ranging, and we couldn't get the ohms readings because it searches around automatically for a specific ohm range. Well, when you're testing our products, you need to know what the ohm range is so you get the right number. So you want to get a meter that, first of all, is digital. You're not using these analog meters anymore with the needle on the front that bounces back and forth. That's a complete waste of time. They will not work. Don't bother. what you do is you go out and buy a $15 or $20 meter that has a knob on the front, and you can set that knob for 200, or you can set it for 20K, because 20K is what you need to measure your floor sensor, and 200 is what you need for 90% of our floor heating products. So you want the manual meter so you can set it there and then measure it without guessing, oh, I hope this is right. What range am I on? I can't tell. I got to press the range button. You don't want to do that. So the less expensive, the better. Now, let's say somebody, there's a laundry list of things that can happen on the installation site, and if you don't do your tests, you're not going to know when the problem happened. If someone drops a 40-pound a bucket of thin set on the floor, and you know how sharp those edges get on the bottom of those buckets. If that drops on the cable, remember, or you may not remember because you don't know, but there are 3 little wires inside that cable. 2 of them are heating wires and the other one is a ground. If you take and you drop a heavy object on one of those heating wires and smash it into the ground, you've created a short. So that's how you can have a product that tests good out of the box, and then after you're done installing, you see you have a short. Well, if you drop a hammer, it does the same thing. It smashes those wires together, creates a short, or it might damage the wire. If you're, and don't ask me how I know this, but if you're putting thin set down with your trowel and you hit your trowel on the floor to clear it before you go get your next batch, what happens if you clear your trowel on the floor and you hit the wire?
Bad things.
That's where the circuit check is going to scream at you and going, whatever you just did, you just created a short. Now, some of these things will show up immediately. Some of them may not show up for 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. I've gone out and repaired floors that were good for 20 years, but a spot where you can go out and see the wire. You can see where the dent is in the wire, where they either dropped a bucket on it, or they dropped a hammer on it, or they put, somebody wanted to come in and paint real quick, so they put a ladder on the cable before it was covered. All those things can damage the wire immediately, or 10 years or 15 years later. So then you go, oh, holy mackerel, what do I do now? There's a problem in the floor. I've got to rip up the entire floor and start over again. Oh, help, help, help. What am I going to do to rip up this floor? Well, you don't need to rip up the floor, because we have tools that you can use to find the exact spot, whether it's covered with wood, whether it's covered with tile, whether it's a snow melt system that's covered with concrete. You can find that bad spot, lift up that area above it, and repair it, and then cover it back up again. I've gone out and repaired driveways, asphalt driveways. I've done concrete ramps. I've done floor heat under wood, all kinds of things. And these tools are readily available from us. You can rent them from us, and you can find the spot. Now, what you have is you have a high pot unit which shoots a bunch of voltage down the wire and can heat up spots where there's a short, or it can fuse the wire together where they were open by generating an electric bolt between those 2 wires. So even if you can't get them to weld themselves together, you still have that bolt of electricity like lightning going between these 2 wires. And what that does is it eventually heats the thin set up, or the self-leveling in that area, and you take this thermal camera and you look at the floor, and wherever that hot spot is, it's the spot where that problem is. So you take up the tile where that spot was, you fix it, you put the tile back down, and you're done. You're not ripping up the floor. Help me, I need to rip up the entire floor. Very, very rarely have we ever had to replace a floor because it couldn't be repaired. Very, very rarely. What the floors that have the most problems, that are the most difficult to repair, are the ones where the person used a sharp blade to clean the grout lines after the tile was installed. Because you know what they did? They used that really sharp knife. They got too deep, and they cut the wire. So they cut it here, they cut it over there, they cut it in the hallway, they cut it because they didn't either know that there was heating cable under it, or they forgot it. So those are the ones where you have multiple spots that have been damaged. That may be enough to be catastrophic damage, where you may have to lift it up if you've got 20 spots that have been done. Just a little side note, the first job that I ever went out to work on was a competitor system, because we can work on competitor systems. The problem is we went out to that competitor systems job, and the installer said, I used a sharp knife, so we found a spot over there, we found a spot over here, and after the 3rd spot, the installer said, you might as well stop, because I did the same thing throughout the entire room.
Oh gosh.
So that's a problem.
Yeah.
That floor needed to be replaced. But where it's not catastrophic damage like that, as we said, 99 times out of 100 or 9,090 out of 10,000, that floor can be fixed. So the only thing is, this is a very, very high voltage machine. So we require that an electrician that's licensed and bonded, insured, use that tool because it can be very, very high voltage.
Yeah, definitely not toys.
So if you're interested in doing that, these tools can be used to fix our product. They can be used to fix pretty much any heating cable product made by anybody. And I've used these exact tools multiple times to fix our competitors' product. So it can be done without too much problem.
Absolutely. So, why would you work with WarmlyYours? I think a lot of people ask that question, as there are more competitors on the market, and we really are the leader in radiant heating. We really make sure that we are answering all your questions. We want to make sure that, our customer service is above and beyond your expectations. So, we have no restocking fees. If you ever need to return something for any reason, don't hesitate to let us know. All you need to do is get that shipped back to us, and we will not charge you for that return. As long as it's in resellable condition, ready to go, we are all very happy to accept that return. We also have 24/7 tech support, of which Scott is a member of that 24/7 team. Gets calls Christmas morning, Thanksgiving dinner, all the time. We are happy to answer those questions. So that's what we're here for. We want to make sure that you are, really confident that you're going to have all your questions answered whenever they pop up. And we do have, that no nonsense warranty. We want to make sure that if for some reason our system is failing you and you do need to tear up that entire floor, we're going to get that fixed for you. And we want to make sure that we're not going to make you jump through all kinds of hoops. We want to make sure that you know that we stand behind our products 100%. We also offer that online tool for project planning. All the online tools that we showed you, that website is a treasure trove of information, tools, lots of different things to really make sure that you're getting your project planned out well in advance so that you're not going into this blind. We are behind you 100%. You also will have a dedicated account manager here. Once you are assigned an account manager, we're going to be with you every step of the process. You'll have access to them, via email, phone, however you need to get a hold of us. And we do have that 24-hour turnaround on floor plans. So once you send in your request for a quote to your account manager, we're going to make sure that that gets over to you right away. So are there any questions? I know that we had a couple questions sent in earlier. Did we get to all those, Scott?
We might as well go through them real quick. That way it gives people that are watching a chance to think about and formulate their questions if they want. The first one was, I want to install electric heating over an uninsulated old garage slab on grade. That's a great question. That's exactly where you're going to be using the Sarasorb on top of the slab, putting the cable on top of the Sarasorb and then covering with the floor covering of your choice. Always isolate the heating cable from the slab for best results. And we have energy studies on our website that shows the difference between Sarasorb and no Sarasorb. Usually with Sarasorb, you're going to get higher temperatures, you're going to get faster heating times, and you're going to get a totally better satisfaction out of a product that heats quickly and gets warm. There's nothing worse than talking to a customer who spent a lot of money on the project. They put cable directly on the slab, and now their floor only gets to 74 degrees. Where if you had used Sarasorb, you'd be at 84, 86, whatever you wanted it to be. So you want to make sure that you isolate that wire from the slab. We were one of the first companies to even recommend using insulation over the slab, because in the old days that's what everybody did, and they go, well, this, that's part of the problem when electric floor heating started, because these people weren't really happy with the output, and we found out that they weren't, because all the heat was being pulled down into the slab. So hopefully that answers question number one. Number two, I know we addressed, but I like these questions because they're recap questions and they're very popular questions. How much height does the process add before the tile? And we talked about how the cable actually sits in a layer. It doesn't sit under a layer. So when you put that installation in, you've got this cable that's 3/16 of an inch thick or maybe a quarter of an inch thick at the most. That's included. That's set in 3/8 of an inch of self-leveling or thin set. So it's really not adding much height at all. It's simply embedded in that layer you're using to set the tile. So hardly anything for that, Bill, but thank you for sending that question in. Installation of wood floor over WarmlyYours system, that was the sleeper installation. That's how that's put in, with sleepers, nailed down, heating cable, using strips in the alleys or the lanes between the sleepers that you put in. So hopefully that answered your question, Mohammed. Thank you for sending it. Solutions for floating LVT with cork or neoprene backings. Not ideal, but what could be used? And Mark's right on it. He knows what's going on, because why would he tell us that it has cork backing? Because cork is an insulator. So if you had your druthers between an LVT or a plank that was just bare, or one with the cork backing, the one without the cork backing is probably going to get warmer, because cork is going to try to keep the heat from getting through. So the main thing you want to do when you're choosing an LVT product is you're going to be using TempZone with self-leveling. That's the best results. The next thing you want to do is see what the R value is of that particular flooring. You want the flooring to have, the lower the R value, the better, because lower R value means heat is getting through it into the room and onto your feet. So very, very good question, Mark. You were on it. You knew exactly which way you needed to go, so that was a great question. So the answer to it is find one that has the lowest R value.
Absolutely.
What is the average radiant floor project cost? I think we talked about that, didn't we?
Yeah, we did. And actually, again, the best thing to really, the average cost really just varies so much depending on every type of, room, flooring, all that good stuff. And the best thing I personally would say is go to the website and build a quick quote and just kind of get an idea. If you're just looking for a really rough estimate for budgeting, or just to, try to convince your spouse to put this in your house, which is what I'm doing right now, then it's a really good way to just get an idea of cost, and then always reach out to us for that full quote as well.
And a lot of the webinars we do put the prices right in the webinar.
Yeah.
So if you're interested in using LVT, you can go to our webinar that's all about LVT, and we actually have examples in that webinar of the exact costs. So that would be a good place to look. And thank you, Diane, for that great question.
Absolutely.
So I think we're going to have to wrap it up here, because we're running over time. We just blather on and on and on.
Oh, we like to
So
talk.
much information, right?
All right. So if you like hearing us talk, though, which I mean, we like to talk, please feel free to join us for our next webinar. It will be on February 11th, again at 1 o'clock Central. And this is going to be talking about heating your favorite spaces with spot heating. So we're actually going to go over just doing those, small areas where you just want to get some extra heat in. We're going to talk about all that good stuff.
Yeah, exactly. But this is for the people that think they can put a 3x3 square in the middle of the room and have the heat radiate out to the entire space.
Yeah, not quite.
It doesn't do that. It only travels 1.5 inches laterally from the heating cable. So that's going to be all covered in that. So it's great information for that one.
And if you like hearing me or Scott talk more, please feel free to join our daily trainings. We have these at least once a day, sometimes twice a day, right here on Crowdcast. We also host them on Facebook as well. So you can just pop in. They're 10-15-minute sessions where we just talk about a topic, but you can ask questions on any topic. Doesn't need to be that day's. So feel free to pop in with any questions you might have. And our January promotion is 20% off on our lava panels. These are our warming radiant panels. This is actually a really great deal. So feel free to go over to our website to get more information on that promo. And at the end of the survey, at the end of the webinar, we're going to send you a survey in an email, just briefly asking about your experience during this. So please feel free. We really appreciate, your comments and suggestions, especially suggestions on any topics you'd like to see in the future. We'd love to hear from you and get your feedback from today.
Yeah, we'd much rather talk about stuff you're interested in.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of different products out there that people have questions about. So please let us know what they are.
For sure. And please feel free to contact us. We would love to talk to you individually, answer any questions you have, and get you some quotes. So you can give us a phone call or send us an email. You can email our general info box at info@warmlyyours.com or reach out directly to Julia, our owner and president. She really likes to talk one-on-one with our customers as well to make sure that you're getting all your questions answered. So you can reach out to her at jbillen@warmlyyours.com. And of course, our website, like I said before, is really full of all this information and more. You probably spend days on that website. So please look at that. Feel free to play around with all of our different tools and learn more about all of our products. And of course, visit our Facebook for new product launches, monthly promotions, and of course, those daily training videos. Thank you so much for joining us. Sorry we went a little bit over time, but we really appreciate you being here. And until next time, Scott,
Stay warm and
be radiant.
thank you.
Thanks.